Hi, I'm Andrew Pudewa, Director of the Institute for Excellence in Writing, and it is a pleasure for me to be with you here now and share with you a little bit about our company and what we do, why we do it, and how it works so well. For more than 25 years, we have offered materials to teach the arts of language. Our products span grades kindergarten through grade 12, and we also discover that many people who are working in a acquisition of English as a second language or a foreign language benefit hugely, as well as reaching out toward the special needs. And of course, we even have some university students who take our courses and say, wow, this is going to be tremendously helpful. We cover writing and grammar and spelling. We have materials for helping young children learn to read. We have poetry, literary analysis, college prep, speech and debate, and even more coming. We have found that our methods and materials work for students of all different ages and aptitudes. The most common question that we get is, how is IEW's writing different than other curriculums? And indeed, we are somewhat unique in our approach. If you were to find your average child or young person who does not like to write, and you were to ask them, why do you not like to write? Once you got past the tautologies of, because it's hard, because I can't do it, blah, blah, you would probably boil it down to one defining problem, and that is, I don't know what to write. I can't think of anything. Perhaps you've heard that come out of the mouth of one of your students. And so our approach, which may seem new to some people, is actually based on a very old methodology of imitation in writing. So we actually begin the teaching of writing by removing the problem of what to write and giving the children, giving the students content. That content may take the form of something like an Aesop fable or a little bit of interesting information about a person or a place or an event. Something that is generally short, at or below the reading level of the student, and we show them how to make what we call a keyword outline by taking keywords from each sentence in this short text, and then retell that content at first verbally, and then in writing by rewriting those keywords, adding the words needed to put it back into complete sentences. So this is a method based on imitation, one step removed from straight copy work, and then through the 9 units of the Structure and Style syllabus, we lead the student from that dictated content toward the blank page and the more advanced type of writing where you have to think of what you're writing. Let me show you how we do that. This is a little chart taken from our course, Teaching Writing, Structure, and Style. This is our flagship product. This is our teacher training course that we encourage everyone from homeschooling parents to tutors to classroom teachers, hybrid school teachers, even college and university teachers. This is the key course here. And here you see then our 9 units. Unit 1 and 2 is where we do exactly what I just explained to you, teach note making with keywords from each sentence, creating outlines, and then telling back the content from the notes. Unit 2 is that same process, only taking it one step further and writing out those sentences from those notes. We're going to demonstrate this for you in just a minute, but let me show you how it goes. Unit 3 is retelling narrative stories. Here you don't have keywords from each sentence in a story, but you do have a method of extracting keywords for the ideas in the story, and we'll show you a more detailed example of that as well. Unit 4, summarizing a reference. Here's where you have too many facts, and so you not only have to choose the keywords from facts, but you also have to choose which facts to transfer because there are too many. This is usually referred to as summarizing. Unit 5 is where we now are moving back onto the story kind of creative, more imaginative side. And this is where you don't get a story per se, but you're not all alone. you have a set of pictures and a methodology of extracting ideas from your mind based on those pictures. Again, putting those ideas into keywords in preparation for writing from pictures. Unit 6 is an extension off of summarizing a reference. This is where you not only have too many facts, you have too many sources with too many facts. And so now how do you sort through multiple sources and choose those facts which fit together, that are relevant or connected or supportive of what you're trying to summarize? And so that's another step in kind of that research process that is so essential for today's modern student to have mastered. Then back on the creative side, we have inventive writing. This is where it's just you and your brain, whatever you happen to carry around in it. You're accessing your memory, your imagination, experience you've had. Unfortunately, a lot of writing programs kind of start here. And we'll say, okay, in order to learn to write, you have to think of stuff. Whereas what we have noticed is that that itself can be an overwhelming block in the process. So in our system, we actually teach you how to write, retell, use information that you don't have to think up or imagine. And then when you get to Unit 7, you know how to do it. So rather than saying you have to learn how to you have to think of something to learn how to write, the inverse. Learn how to write, and what's the byproduct? You learn how to think of stuff. Unit 8 is our formal essay, beginning with the traditional 5-paragraph and quickly moving into 6, 7, 8 to 11, 12, 15, 17. I can even get you up to a 36-paragraph behemothic essay if that's what you want. So we have those models. And then Unit 9 is the critique, which would replace the book report, the traditional book report, and extending off of Unit 9, the critique model. We actually have a nonfiction critique as well as a response to literature and literary analysis essay models. So those are our structural units, and we'll go into each of those in a little bit more depth. I wanted to show you how this keyword outline idea actually works and what it looks like. I love to start with Aesop fables because nobody objects. You can use Aesop fables with a grade 2 student. You can use them with a grade 10 student. You can use them with adults. They're generally short. They come in kind of a variety of reading levels. You want to find a source text that is at or below the target reading level of your students. And so this example of the dog and the shadow. Lucky Dog had found a big fresh bone, was carrying it home to enjoy. On his way, he had to cross a low bridge over a calm stream. As he crossed, he looked down and saw his own reflection in the water beneath. Thinking it was another dog with another bone, he wanted to have that also. So he growled and snapped at the other dog in the water, but as he opened his mouth, the bone fell out. It dropped into the stream and was gone forever. Okay, you're probably familiar with that fable. You may have seen a shorter or longer version, one with maybe some more antiquated vocabulary or not. This is one that I actually used in the filming of one of our products that I'll be sharing with you shortly. So when you create a keyword outline, you would generally use a separate piece of paper, but here we'll see it side by side for your view. You look at that first sentence, okay? Let's read it again. A lucky dog had found a big fresh bone and was carrying it home to enjoy. What are the key words in the sentence? Well, you're not likely to forget it's a dog. You may choose lucky. You may say, okay, bone. That's a key idea. Home, enjoy. Or maybe bone carrying home, or fresh bone home, or lucky bone enjoy. Really, there'd be any possible combination, and it would probably all work in the end. But let's say that the student chose bone home enjoy, and so you would then choose those words, maybe underline them on the original, and transfer them into the keyword outline in this manner. We recommend the habit of putting a comma between the key words. And this serves the student very well, especially as they get into Unit 7 and 8, where their outlines are much longer and more complex, and it helps reduce the temptation of putting little unnecessary words and exceeding the limit of 3. On his way, he had to cross a low bridge over a calm stream. Keywords, maybe you're thinking cross, calm stream, or cross bridge stream, or bridge calm stream. Really anything would work. So let's say you go with bridge, calm, and stream. As he crossed, he looked down and saw his own reflection in the water beneath. So what might you choose? Saw, maybe crossed, saw reflection water, saw water beneath, saw reflection beneath. Any of those would probably work. And so you would choose, copy, and then just go through until you had done all 6 of the sentences. You'll notice in our system we use a Roman numeral for the first thing in a paragraph, and that is preparing us for the idea of topic sentence, which we introduce in Unit 4 and carry on through Units 5, 6, 7, and 8. If we only have 1 paragraph worth of content, which is the case here, we only have 1 Roman numeral, but that's just to be consistent through the units. So, in Unit 1, we're just making the outline and telling it back. So we remove the original, we go back and see, okay, we copied the words bone, home, and enjoy. What was the idea that went with that? And the student would probably, in fact, I find almost all kids can do this without too much difficulty the very first time. Say, a dog found a bone and was taking it home to enjoy it. Now, their statement, it will probably be different than the original, but that's okay. We're not expecting them to repeat it verbatim. We are wanting them to recreate the idea. Bridge, calm, stream. What was that about? He had to cross a bridge over a calm stream. And so you add the words that are necessary to make a complete sentence out of the keywords, and that's Unit 1. And then Unit 2, which generally I teach concurrently, you continue to do Unit 1 and then you extend that to Unit 2 by writing from those notes the sentences that you're able to speak. This pretty much solves for every child I have ever met. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to say. I can't do this. This is very, very doable by almost any child who can just copy words and attempt to write sentences. In fact, that's the answer to the question, when can we start your writing program? My answer always, if your child can read somewhat independently, copy words somewhat accurately, and attempt to write sentences, you can get going with Unit 1 and 2 and keyword outlines. Now, with Unit 3, we don't use every sentence in the story. The stories can be any length. They could be shorter, like a half-page Aesop fable, or 1 or 2 pages, or 10 pages, or a whole movie. As long as it has the elements of characters and setting, conflict and problem, and a climax and resolution, then we can put that into what we promote as a 3-paragraph model, or you might call it 3 mini chapters if you want to. And then we get the key words, not by looking on the page, but by putting the story into the mind and then pulling the story out by asking the appropriate questions. So you see that the who, when, and where primarily go to help ask the questions that give you the characters and setting. The question of what do they want or need? What do they think? What do they say or do? This helps you identify and develop the problem and the plot, or the conflict and the development there. The third section then is, how is this problem solved? You have that moment of climax. What happens after that? And oftentimes a story has some kind of point to it, some kind of message or something to be learned, and that answers the question why. So we have the big questions, who, what, where, why, when, how, divided and assigned to each portion of the model of the unit. In Unit 4, very quickly summarizing, is to understand that you cannot tell everything. I have noticed that most people in general, including myself, and almost all children I ever have met, dislike the word summarize. And for years, I kind of wondered, why does everybody hate this word? And then I realized it's because it's spelled badly. If you look S-U-M, and you know even a little bit of math talk, that means the total, or all of it. So what a lot of kids think is, okay, so what I have to do is tell all of that in this much space. No one can do that. You can only tell some of it, which is why properly spelled, it would be SOME-A-RIZE, with a nod to our British neighbors. The other thing we teach in summarizing here is the idea of identifying topics and creating a topic sentence with a concluding, or what we call clincher sentence, that repeats or reflects 2 to 3 key words. That makes the paragraph more cohesive. It ties it together and wraps it up, but you can know for a fact that you did that rather than having a vague feeling about where should I stop this paragraph and start the next one. With writing from pictures, you see that we have another chart of 3 paragraphs, although this unit can easily be adjusted to 2 paragraphs or even 1, or perhaps 4 or more if you wanted to. So it's very, very flexible. It isn't telling a story in the same sense that there's characters and setting and problem and resolution. It may look kind of like that, but we think of it as event description. So there's a picture, and then the topic sentence becomes the central fact. What do you see in the picture? And then the student has the litany of questions. Who's in the picture? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? When did this start? When is it going to end? Where is this happening? Where are they going? Where are they coming from? Why is this happening? What happened before this picture? What might happen after this picture? Is there anything outside this picture or invisible? And with that litany of questions, the students are able to then describe and write about what they see in that series of pictures. So this is very, very helpful. I would have done very badly with this as a child, because if you showed me a picture of a guy in a boat, I would write, once upon a time there was a guy in a boat. And then I wouldn't have anything more to say because I hadn't, in my youth, learned how to think of stuff. Now, show me a picture of a guy in a boat and say, write about it, and just I'll say, how long do you want? I can spin this thing for as long as you want because I know how to think. Won't be very good necessarily, but I can do it. It's a big difference. Unit 6, summarizing multiple references. This is really like that kind of note card research project that many of us suffered through in middle or high school, but in microcosm, taking one topic at a time, choosing facts from one source, from another source, from a third source, or maybe more if you wish, and then fusing those into a fused outline from which you write the paragraph. So it's training you on how to deal with multiple references and research process in a small, manageable way so that you can understand both the trees and the forest and not get lost out of perspective in a project that's just too big to even know what you're really doing. As I mentioned, with inventive writing, this is where there is no source text, there is no reference material, there's no pictures, there's no story. It's just you and whatever you happen to be able to talk about. We use the My Dog model because that's kind of the characteristic idea. Write about your animal, write about your pet. And of course, without some help, most students would probably start and write something like this. My dog is a really awesome dog, and I really, really love my dog because he is so awesome, and he is a really, really fun dog and super nice and really, really awesome. The end. Well, why would that happen? Because the student hasn't learned some of the skills of how to think about your dog, how to identify what are some possible topics, use the thinking skill of division, and then the habit of asking questions that we've trained in Unit 3. The list of questions. In Unit 5, the litany of questions. They again have that litany of questions and adding even more to it. You'll notice that the My Dog model as it exists here is a 5-paragraph form, which is going to be seen again in Unit 8 with the 5-paragraph basic essay. But I will say, Unit 7, I have taught it very successfully to children of all different ages using fewer or more paragraphs. So you can do the same process of inventive writing with 1 paragraph or 2 or 3. If you get 3, that's kind of where you say, okay, an introduction and conclusion makes sense here. And of course, if you want to tell more than 3 things about your dog, you could expand it to 5 or 6. This is very, very useful for any students who need to prepare to do, say, a prompt-based essay on demand, a standardized writing test, anything in that area, because this is really going to give them the skill of think first, organize, then write. And if you think first and then write, you can actually write better than if you're trying to think, what's the next thing I'm going to say here? Then with Unit 8, a nod to the Canadians who originally showed me the structure and style system many, many years ago. Champlain, you look at 3 aspects of your subject. Champlain was an explorer, settler, and a soldier. You write a paragraph about each of those, you add a conclusion and an introduction. And then, as I mentioned, we have essays beyond 5 paragraphs, which you need to push to because the 5-paragraph essay is a little bit limited or cliched. Some people don't like it, but we'll get you into 6 or 7-paragraph expanded essay or expanded essay with expanded topics, subtopics. And then we have the super essay, which would be 12 to 16 or so paragraphs, the super duper essay, and you can just keep adding to this. But the key idea is that in teaching a structure, like the 5-paragraph essay, then you can have variations on it. If you don't teach a structure, it's very difficult for students to figure out how to plan and organize anything. With Unit 9, we have the formal critique. As I mentioned, the fiction critique is kind of like a Unit 3 sandwich. You're using the story sequence chart and adding on an introduction and conclusion. And the nonfiction is kind of like a Unit 8 critique sandwich where you tell 3 things about the book that were notable and you add on the introduction and conclusion, which tell a little bit more in terms of the context, the author, and then what was good or bad, what you liked or did not like about that. I recommend you replace the term book report because nobody likes book reports. I certainly don't. Do you? And replace it with critique because that sounds more romantic. Hey, we get to criticize something. Kids love the idea. Now, the other half of our syllabus is the stylistic techniques. And so we have categories. The 3 categories are dress-ups, sentence openers, and decorations. And these stylistic techniques are things that good authors do. They're very often mentioned in books on how to teach writing or how to teach well. There's a difference, however. We use a checklist-based system where doing these techniques are actually required in the composition. So it's not just a list of 10 good suggestions. We use the 10 Commandments rule here because it tends to work better, especially for the students who might not care to use your good suggestions because they don't really care about improving their writing at all. But we can trick them into doing it. The most important thing I have learned over these many years is to pace yourself properly in teaching these so that you don't introduce too many techniques too quickly and overwhelm the student. So we start with the very first 1 dress-up technique, require that in each paragraph until it becomes easy. Then we add in the next, and then we require both of those techniques, the LY and the who-which, and require that in every paragraph until doing 2 things has become easy. Then we add in the 3rd dress-up, the because clause, require all 3 of those things and do that until it becomes easy. And then the next one, the strong verb. But we add a new technique to the checklist only when what has been taught so far has become relatively easy. Easy meaning the students can do it without much help and it doesn't sound too goofy most of the time. These checklists are tremendously helpful if you are required to grade student writing because, much could be said about the problems of grading. Do you just grade on how you feel about something that someone wrote? Or do you try to figure out how hard they worked and grade them on effort? Or do you have some rubric, but is it objective? Can a student actually know, did I do that thing or not? And so our checklist is very helpful for that purpose and very, very concrete. Every student can know, did he do what he was asked to do? Underline, check it off. Indicator, check mark. Double check, check what you do and do what you check. And then the checklists gradually expand over the course. So if you start with Unit 2, as we would recommend at the beginning of a school year, at least in our country, it's approximately like this, you might hit Unit 7 by going through 1 unit a month in approximately March, April, in which case you see the checklist would have grown significantly as the number of paragraphs increase, as the number of stylistic techniques has increased. And we have some wonderful tools to help you use and track and even generate custom checklists for your students as you go through the 9 units over the course of the school year. Now, what we recommend is that you go through the 9 units, or as far as you get. You may only get up to unit 7 or so with younger students. And then next year, go through all 9 units again. And then the next year, go through all 9 units again. And you might be thinking, wait, you teach the same thing at every grade level. No. You're using the same tools. You're reinforcing the same structural models and stylistic techniques, but you're writing different articles, different stories, doing different research, using different pictures, writing essays and critiques on different subjects and materials, so that there's variety through the school year, but you're reinforcing exactly what you want to be teaching over the course of 3 or 4 or more years. And I virtually guarantee, if you go through these units and use these checklists for 3 or 4 or more years, I guarantee you'll have a student that will go off, into a university or a job or start their own business, and they will write circles around their peers because they will have internalized the structural ideas, and then through combination and permutation and variation, they can be far more creative and organized than the average peer. So what do we have for you? We've got lots of courses. In addition to our teacher training course, we have this, which we newly did, Structure and Style for Students. Very excited about this. This is the most comprehensive course we have. I took 3 different groups of kids through 24 weeks. It's all video. It's incremental. There's humor. The printed materials are easy to understand and use. It's really the best thing we've ever done. And it includes, a bit of vocabulary development, a good bit of grammar, and we've also included literature suggestions as well. And we've got 2 years going. If you want to, for your second year, you can make your own lessons and assignments. That's what we teach you to do in the TWSS. You can go with a second year of Structure and Style for Students. Or we also have the option of theme-based writing lessons, which does not have a video component with it, but it does have fully fleshed out lesson plans with source text, practice exercises, checklists, and teacher instructions there. And you generally get one of these theme-based books. Our orange stripe stuff is for generally grade 1-2 reading level. Our green stripe stuff is generally grade 3 to 5 reading level. Our blue stripe stuff is generally middle school reading level. And we have a few purple striped stuff for high school reading level. So those are also a good option. And those are used a lot in co-ops or hybrid schools, where the kids have a class once or twice a week, but they're doing most of the actual writing at home, and then you, the parent, are assisting in that circumstance. We have an award-winning grammar program called Fix It. This teaches editing and grammar. It includes vocabulary development. It also reinforces students in recognizing, identifying stylistic techniques from our TWSS syllabus. And your average amount of time you would spend would be 10 to 15 minutes 4 days a week. And we've had tremendous review. Students get to kind of hunt for errors, embedded errors, and fix them. And each day it adds to the story. And so they enjoy it. It's not like a tedious workbook, or it's not like you have to, study up and remember stuff and take a test. It's through just a constant repetition and practice. Students internalize their understanding of grammar, improve their editing skills, and then what we see is that they start to notice some of those things they've been fixing in the Fix It. Oh, I just did that and I can fix it. So learning to edit. You can take a look at that at iew.com/free-grammar and download a few lessons at any of the levels and see if you like that. One of my favorites, of course, is poetry memorization. I have been touting the value of memorizing beautiful language in order to build vocabulary and syntax and gain familiarity with poetic or rhetorical devices. And it is incredibly helpful. This is kind of like, if you're familiar all with Suzuki method of music instruction, this is almost exactly a Suzuki method for poetry memorization, and done properly, children would learn 80 poems and 20 excerpts from famous speeches. And if you do it correctly, they would probably have lifetime retention or close to it, because it's a constant practice review, and it gets easier and easier and more fluent and more fluent. We do have our primary arts of language materials, both for reading and writing. This is for beginning students, whether they are young, 5, 6 years old, or maybe older, but still having a hard time getting started with reading and writing. And it's a very hands-on, activity-based, multi-sensory approach, and those can be purchased individually or together in a package to save a bit of money. And then as you move into more fluent reading and writing, you have a need for spelling. So we have a program called the Phonetic Zoo, which is based on phonics. Won't contradict anything you've ever learned already. It's more of an auditory approach, so it's not just looking at words and doing things on paper, but the multisensory approach works especially well with students who tend to be more auditory in their learning style, with students who kind of like the idea of independent working. It's kind of a self-test, self-correct, and you can learn a lot more about that at IEW.com/free-spelling. I also have a talk called Spelling and the Brain, which can be viewed, I think, on YouTube, or a link from our website. So if you're having trouble with spelling and or brains, this talk, it's about 70 minutes, and I think it's very enlightening and helpful in terms of understanding the nature of spelling, the nature of the brain, and how those might best work together for different kids and their different neurologies and aptitudes. We have a cursive writing program, which is for students of all ages, especially for students who want to begin cursive writing, perhaps past the traditional age of learning to write. And it's reproducible practice sheets. It's been very, very good. We have materials for speech and debate, beginning with my course, Speech Boot Camp. And then in cooperation with other people and groups, we have other products that you can learn about as well, very easily from our website, IEW.com. Please, if you like podcasts, check ours out. It's called the Arts of Language Podcast. It's available on all major platforms. We have well over 200 episodes, ranging from everything on, dealing with a reluctant writer to, is paper and pen better than screens and keyboards, to my son, who did a couple on the experience of growing up very dyslexic, to motivation, to cooking. We've really traversed a wide range, and I think you would find some of them perhaps very helpful for you. We have, of course, our blog, and you can subscribe to that, as well as pretty much anything else. If you still have questions, you call our award-winning, amazing, incredible customer service people, or chat, or text, or email. We are always available to help you. So thank you for your time. I hope that points you in the right direction. God bless you.